So one thing that we could try to do is create counter propaganda. I really actually kind of believe in that now.
I'm like, so I mean, that's what I'm asking. That's exactly what I'm asking.
Let's do counter propaganda. I know that Adam McKay tried it with Don't Look Up, and David Sirota was one of the writers on that, and McKay is trying to do other things. In the end, though, it's just content. And I think we need to get
but what's the line between counter propaganda and content? What was it about Don't Look Up that you found to be closer to content than counter propaganda?
Because in the end, like Leonardo DiCaprio gets together with his wife and everything's like, there's a happy moment of reconciliation at the end and the scientists are heroes and they're like the only people on Earth. And I'm just like, okay, well, what if this was counter propaganda? Like, wouldn't we have to look at the journey of people who are not scientists who have to live with the end of the world? I don't know.
Well, okay, so let's spoiler alert.
I don't want to be a critic of
but no. This is interesting. This is interesting though, right? We all know that David Sirota is, friends of the show. We all support and admire his journalism, but I don't think that he would quibble about anybody offering constructive feedback on this kind of product, because we so rarely get something like this that of course we're all thirsting to talk about it. And I someone might argue that the scientists aren't really the heroes. For most of the arc of the movie, Leonardo DiCaprio's character gets caught up in fame and consumption and ends up betraying his wife. And it takes a kind of a wake-up call in the, final act for him to realize that he has been led astray, and that we do in that really poignant final scene as the end of the world approaches, get the perspective of non-scientists through the eyes of his wife and his family and the other people in their orbit. The Timothée Chalamet character, who's a young skateboardy kind of street kid that becomes entangled with
that was so absurd to me, but okay, I have my own thing beef with Chalamet. I call him Timothée. Okay, he's French. Timothée. Can we just pronounce his name in the French way?
Timothée Chalamet. But or whatever you think of the character, but the idea that we do get to see, him and his friends in the 7-Eleven or whatever it was, have their own perspective on what's going on in the world. And I don't know if you're arguing, if what you're saying is that something that's counter propagandistic can't have entertainment value, but it seems clear to me that it must have entertainment value. There must throw a romantic arc in there, throw a couple of celebrities on it, whatever. I mean, it has to be appealing to people. Otherwise, it's one of these horrible like CDC ads that I'm hit with every time I try to watch a YouTube video.
First of all, I have to say, I should have gone a lot harder against that film, but I didn't want to, I don't want to make it about like slamming Adam McKay. But I've been thinking about this a lot, and I'm
all right. So this is the real breakdown.
No, it's not really, because I'm still like circling around it. But you know what, Adam McKay and David Sirota did not deal with, and like Timothée Chalamet, but all aside, presented as the everyman, that's absurd. But there are thousands, if not millions, of doomsday preppers in this country, right? People who are, filling up their bunkers with water, with food, with canned foods, and upper middle class people, PMC people laugh at them. But these doomsday preppers are real. And then you have like billionaires who are, stocking up their silos in North Dakota and New Zealand. Like
there's even incredible income inequality in the prepper community.
So we're all receiving like all of these messages like throughout Don't Look Up. It's not just Ariana Grande versus Meryl Streep. Like there are legit doomsday preppers, and then there are these PMC people who are just like hysterical, right, about tsunamis and everything. And then there's a bunch of people who feel so untouched by media, whose lives are just struggles for survival, and they don't care about this shit. They're not listening to Ariana Grande. They're not watching CNN or even Fox, right? And that's real diversity of reception. And for me, to have Timothée Chalamet like represent the everyman, and then you have the scientists who are who have, like, Leonardo DiCaprio has the most interesting arc, and Jennifer, Lawrence has an interesting arc, and Timothy Chalamet like reconciles us with his version of God. I was like, this is kind of laughable, guys. Like,
Timothy
about,
Chalamet.
like,
There's an arc for Jennifer
Timothée.
Lawrence. There's an arc for Leonardo DiCaprio. Timothy Chalamet is in the car hanging out, and
right, he's in the car hanging out. But think about, like, the doomsday prepper is the person that, like, liberal Hollywood doesn't really even want to deal with.
Yeah.
That is a real person. That's a real subculture. That's, like, really scary. Those people have been preparing for the end of the world. And very, very wealthy people have been preparing for the end of the world.
Yeah, I know.
We're just going to
doomsday
concerts.
prepper that's
Like, we're just going to concerts and, like, rallies. Political rallies. That's a very strange view of America. That's a very, like, coastal elite view of America.
Yeah.
It's a very my class view of America. Like, I just go and pay, access like $150 to watch Ariana Grande, or I'm like a crazy person. I'm going to a January 6th, pro Capitol invasion rally. That's how people participate in public life. Or I'm shopping and preparing the final meal for my family. And so in the end, like, I have more problems with that film that I wanted to go into with Briahna, because I like David Sirota. I think he's doing God's work on his.
And I'd like to get him on Movie Night Extravaganza. Hopefully he comes on.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But I know I liked your I mean, both what you've just said now, but like that clip, the idea of counter propaganda, and I was trying to figure out like the best words to put my problem with, like, my main problem after watching it, because I enjoyed it. It was funny. I don't think that, like, because I was thinking about it in terms of, if I was someone that didn't believe that climate change was a problem, or if I was someone that didn't understand that climate change was going to be a problem, and I was watching this movie, would I leave this movie feeling like, oh, I get this allegory? And no, you don't. And one of my major problems with it is that it goes rightfully, I think, hard at media, right? At the idea that kind of
that was the best part.
Like celebrities, celebrities are vapid. They kind of just go on this thing. Nobody really, like, we watched Network recently for an episode of This Is Revolution, and it felt like watching Network and seeing this movie is kind of, there are parts of it that are almost like an update, right? Like, instead of being the righteous anger of like Howard Beale, where he goes on and he's like, he's talking on TV and he's like, this is bullshit. It's now like nobody wants to acknowledge that there's bullshit. They just kind of want things to keep going. They want stability. And you go on these shows, there are people that are angry, but like not angry, it's purposely been toned down to be not angry at the right reasons, right? Like conspiracy theories, a lot of times it boils down to capitalism. But they don't want to mention ever that it's capitalism. So it's all these other things, like lizard people, are like these really insane things that if you actually looked at them, if you panned out and looked at it as a structure and as a function of all these different systems, you'd be like, oh no, people are relentlessly profiting off this thing, off all of these issues, and they don't want
our lives, profiting off of our lives, our everyday existences, like lizard people. But they're not lizard people. They're other people. They're called capitalists. Yeah, they're
just people that are, the function of their class is to drain, the working class of all, of all life, of all information, of all, like, so you look at stuff like that, and then looking at the media aspect of this, though, it's like, it's kind of right. It's pointing out that there's this vapid celebrity culture, but they feel like the movie is full of celebrities. Every celebrity, like every actor in the movie, is an A-list celebrity. I don't feel any kind of connection to, like, I see Leonardo DiCaprio as a scientist that's going around yelling at people and being like, you need to listen to the science. And it's like, I see that as Leonardo DiCaprio. Like, I don't see that as a scientist. Like, his performance was good, but it's not. If everybody in the, like, you're kind of, there's kind of a disdainful treatment of media culture, rightfully so, as kind of this vapid, like, let's see how many celebrities we can kind of fit into this. Let's see if we can kind of make this like entertaining more than informative. And then the movie that you're watching is entertaining more than informative, and also chock full of like celebrities. You feel like it's kind of like there's an apparatus that they're trying to criticize from within that apparatus, and it's like, well, there's no answer to that then. Like,
so my only beef with you, Forrest, is the use of the term information. Like, a feature film should not be a place where you have a lot of information. Like, the information about climate change is out there. For me, counter propaganda has to be, and this is so basic, like praising the worker, denouncing the boss. Like it's just very, very like the worker should be the hero.
Yeah, well, information, I guess, might have been the wrong term for that.
That's the intensity of counter propaganda.
Yeah.
The other thing I think about climate change is that, you know what do you do if you have all the information about climate change and you don't have any money? There's no, I mean, the Breakthrough Institute was this group of environmentalists out here in California, and they did this study about how Love Canal bursting into flames in Chicago, really not Chicago, Ohio, sorry, really began the environmental movement in the United States. This river in a city in Ohio was so polluted that it burst into flames, right? And so the whole thing was, they said, like, people started worrying about that. Silent Spring, when all the birds were dying from pesticides, that was also something where the book inspired a lot of like massive public concern. What the argument in the Breakthrough Institute is, we have to get to a certain point of prosperity. This was the 1960s, when there's a base level, level of comfort for working class, middle class people, that they can start to care about the environment. At this point, we've pressed the working class and the middle classes down so far that if you're just worried about survival, caring about the environment is not high on your list of priorities. So I still will argue that like class equality, economic redistribution has to come before caring about the environment. Look at how the people are living in India. Look at how the majority of people live in China. We're going to have to count on them. Is it caring about the environment? No, we can't, as leftists or as like elites go, we need to take this away from you. Like you have a coal burning stove. You can't use that anymore. You have to pipe in like electricity. You have to electrify the countryside in India. So this is like something that I think has to be emphasized, is that you have to redistribute before you can make hundreds of millions, billions of people who are subsisting on $1 a day care about this thing called the environment.
Yeah,
and I mean, that film is for people who can afford to care about the environment. But what would having information caring mean? Buying a Prius? Their Priuses are expensive. I mean, I have one because I'm old and I finally like got one. But for years I couldn't afford one. I mean, you can't afford them because they're not cheap. They're fucking hard. They're fucking expensive to buy. I'm like, this is a joke. We have like tax breaks in California for Teslas. Give me.
I mean, look at how much more Teslas cost than Priuses.
Subsidizing Elon Musk. Stop already with this bullshit environmentalism for the rich.
Okay, and then there's even like those subscription boxes specifically for people who want to be green, but like to me that's just so hilarious because
green. Let me tell you, we've been watching a lot of Jim Henson content, and
well, it's you're still producing shit. You're still making shit for people that they there might be a more environmentally green spatula, but if you already have a spatula, the greenest thing to do is just to hold on to your spatula. But like they just keep forcing people to buy and buy and buy more, and that just creates more shit.
Well, that's the same thing on the other side of these like conspiracy theories, where instead of looking at these things as a problem that you're looking at from the outside, right? Like a problem that you're looking at from a big thing is if all of these structures are connected, you're looking at each problem and trying to solve it through consumerism, through capitalism. And you're like, well, listen, if the environment isn't doing well, what you need is a more sustainable spatula. You need a better car. You need like my dad is a green architect, and like that's exactly that industry is like you need like a house that's more sustainable. That like all these things, poor people can't afford them, and purposely so poor people cannot afford them. Like
here's the other thing. But here's the other thing, like in terms of carbon footprints, Americans have the highest carbon footprint in the world. And the richer you are, the bigger your carbon footprint is. Like per capita carbon footprint of like poor people is much smaller than your person who's like flying around to Aspen, to Vail, to the Bahamas, whatever. So you know what? Actually, being working class is being green because you don't get on a jet all the time and you don't have shit. So But the thing is, like, do we want to take more things away from people?
Yeah.
Really
Right.
don't have anything already. And I've strayed far, far away from Adam McKay's movie.
Right. Yeah.
That movie did not address a single one of these issues.
Yes.
Not a single one. Like Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, the Bursting the Flames of Love Canal. We have stuff to learn from how the environmental movement started. And it started because the American working class and middle class felt like they could afford to care about the air they breathe, the water, and the birds. Right?
Yes.
If you're
Right.
having
You gotta
trouble
love the
putting food
birds.
on the table,
Windmills.
you gotta, if you're having trouble putting food on the table, and 3 out of 5 American kids have known hunger in the past 3 years, you're not going to be worried about a bunch of fucking birds. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Right.
Yeah, and it is a crisis of caring in the sense that everything that our priorities have been drained away to the point where like the liberal answer to it is moralizing and just being like, you're
And
not
care.
good.
And this
You
care
don't. Yeah,
with it.
like
Right.
and then thoughts and cares, I guess, is the
Mhm.
it's thoughts
Yeah,
and prayers and
that's
thoughts and
what
There
cares.
you
thoughts
go.
and
Those are the two.
Thoughts,
Yeah.
prayers, and cares. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thoughts, we have to make it more punchy, like thoughts, prayers, and care packages.
Well, no, but I would say that
Right.
the political divide, right, is the thoughts and cares on the liberal side, thoughts
Yeah.
and prayers on the conservative side.
Oh,
And
that's good.
Right, yeah.
Oh, I
that's
like
the political
it.
dividing
Caring
point in
and
the United
praying.
States.
Yeah.
We solved
I
it.
like
Nathan Robinson couldn't solve it in 3 minutes tonight, and
We
I
solved it. We solved it. Thank you, Forrest. That was awesome. You solved it. Okay.